morning and welcome everyone. This is Seek Sustainable Japan. I'm JJWalsh here in Hiroshima, Japan, joined by...
Hi, I'm Tove Kinooka in Yokohama, Japan.
And it's getting warmer, isn't it, Tove? How are you doing today?
Well, yeah, okay at this time of day, but pretty shortly as the sun comes around, going to be melting. I think it's getting seriously
right. Getting really warm. I've started checking. You're talking a little bit about clean tech. And I've actually, because I do guiding and I do some stuff outside, I've been using this little fan thing that I clip on my clothes. But I think that's worth talking about first, because a lot of people are feeling the heat, and how the heck are we going to stay cool, right?
Yeah, I know. You're seeing them everywhere, walking around the streets. Everyone's got these little sort of either the clip-on ones or handheld little sort of electronic fans, right? And lovely. But then I saw this article the other day from the UK talking about cheap but not disposable and why this is a problem, right? Because these items are not made to be repaired. A lot of them you can't even, if it's a battery operated, you can't replace the battery, or if it's a rechargeable, when the battery sort of eventually winds down, you can't replace it. They break fairly easily. They're made cheaply. And then what do you do with them, right? So they're just contributing to this sort of pile of e-waste that we're building up. And also then once they go into the landfills or whatever, they're going to be leaking out toxic substances into the soil, into the water. So it's really, quite a disturbing issue, I think. And they're everywhere, absolutely everywhere.
Yeah. It is a big issue. And of course, you have to stay cool.
Yeah.
But you also have to think about, what am I going to do with it after? How long can I use it? Can we make these things with recyclable plastic, for example?
Right.
You're going to talk about Beach Clean later.
Yeah.
And then I have one from years ago that I got when I was doing volunteering. And it's a jacket, one of those jackets that make you look like the Michelin Man, which is awesome. But it does work and it keeps you cool. And I see construction workers and people who work outside, they have to. It's a safety. They're gonna, have heat stroke without it. So these things are necessary. But we have to think about how to integrate more sustainable strategy, which saves money not only for the consumer, but for the businesses as well. If we can create some kind of repair system, or can you replace the battery? Can you recharge them? Most of them are rechargeable, but then how long can you use it? Right?
Exactly. And even if the thing itself is reusable, if the sort of the structure of the thing is made very cheaply and falls apart, then again, it's useless. So I think there needs to be stronger regulation on how these things are made, what they're made of, and that extended producer responsibility sort of concept that's been sort of growing in Europe, and a lot of goods now, consumer goods, have this right to repair you've got in Europe. So that the company, when they're designing them, has to think about how can these things be repaired, and has to supply the parts to repair them as well. So
and then have the responsibility as a seller to take it back. Right?
Exactly.
Once they sell it, they're not like off the hook, right? If they have responsibility to take it back, then they're going to integrate these repair schemes, or at least communicate that to the customer, or add costs, which makes the customer consider things more carefully, right?
Exactly. So we've got, I got a cat coming to join me.
Hi,
Kitty. She likes whenever there's any kind of Zoom or anything going on,
nice.
to join the club. But I think so. We need a combination there of sort of awareness for consumers, but also the legislation around sort of forcing retailers and the manufacturers to take responsibility for that. But we also need the infrastructure, right? Of where do consumers bring it back when it's broken? What do they do with it? If we can build that in, then it's less of a problem. But yes, right now it's really building up.
And this connects to one of the articles that I wanted to talk about with Daikin, one of the biggest Japanese makers of air conditioning, and how they're working a lot in Southeast Asia. It's a big business opportunity, but I was really happy to read this about Daikin keeping to their 2050 zero emission targets. And they're trying to integrate, even including the use of the air conditioners that they're selling as part of their carbon impact. And so really responsible. Great article again by the Japan Times. So it's really good to see these things, right?
Yeah, and that's good because that will begin to then put pressure on their competitors, right? And the industry as a whole. If one's doing it and is being seen to make a success of this, then that, you know, opens the door for others to do the same. Hopefully, puts the pressure on.
For sure. And there's that whole conversation about regulation, but also consumer awareness, right? Like it's all a multi-prong. We got to think of it from all sides, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, let me just add the link below.
Brilliant.
And one of the topics, of course, this month, end of this month, no glasses for me, right? This is a big change.
Fantastic.
I had eye surgery this month. So I had some big success for YouTube. We've just passed 1 million views and 5,000 subscribers, which is a big deal. But look at my branding. Now I have to rebrand. And then people are saying, maybe you can keep the frames, you know?
Yeah.
But actually, it's nice not having anything on my face, you know?
Brilliant. Yeah, especially in this hot weather, right? It sort of gets sweaty and annoying.
Yeah, for sure. And fogging up, like if you're wearing a
In the
mask
winter.
and glasses. So I'm enjoying it for a while. But then I was thinking, what am I going to do with all my beautiful glasses I've collected? So I did find that the Lions Club around the world, and there's locations all around Japan as well, they collect old glasses, reading glasses, and they find charities around the world to donate to. So if you search the Lions Club, you can find one in your area and donate to them, and it goes to somebody else, which is awesome.
That's brilliant because glasses aren't cheap, right? And if you're already sort of struggling for other things, then they're going to be lower down that list, but they can make such a huge difference. So my daughter should do the same. She had the LASIK surgery 2 weeks ago and is absolutely loving the fact she can see the world without glasses.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still recovering. So like around the edge is still blurry, but definitely day by day it's getting easier. Now, for me, of course, being focused on sustainability, one of my questions to the doctor, which he said he never had before, is, can I still be an organ donor? Can I still donate my eyes? And this is a common like misperception of people who get LASIK or cataract surgery. Can you donate your eyes? Absolutely. Yes, you can. Brilliant. And he actually gave me cards. It's quite expensive, the lenses they put in. And so I now have parts. My body has parts.
There you go.
And it annoyed me that it was plastic, but then you talk about medical plastic. Well, that is still a really good use of plastic. There isn't anything else, right?
Exactly.
But I did also find that in Japan, you can donate, you can have these English donor cards. And I'll put the link below, and you can put that on the back of your license. You just need to self-register and then keep it in your wallet, even if you don't have a license. And then, yes, you can donate lots of useful things, including your eyes, even if you've had surgery.
That's really good to know. I am definitely going to go and register for that. That's brilliant.
Okay, good. And my doctor was like, never had that question before, you know?
I love it.
I love being the unusual customer. That's awesome.
Well done. Good for you.
Now you also talking about plastic, but a new biodegradable plastic. Talk about this.
Well, this is something that just came up on my feed, social media, and sort of stopped me in my tracks. I was like, that's interesting because we've seen a lot of sort of hype around bioplastics, biodegradable plastics and things sort of over the last few years. And this one's created in Japan, which is wonderful, but it dissolves in seawater within hours. And I was like, that's something new. A lot of the ones we've seen, yes, technically they're biodegradable under specific conditions, and they do take quite some time. This is much faster. So that's a really good thing to see. So I'm kind of watching this space to see where that goes and how they use it. I guess my only concern with it would be that sort of people will go, oh, well, that's okay. It's going to be biodegradable now, so we don't need to worry about sort of taking care of, you know, how we dispose of our plastic so much.
And then the confusion between, is it biodegradable? And
Right.
then the lookalikes
Exactly.
that it looks green, it looks like that, but it's not the one, you know, and then there's that, oh, you don't have to change habits. That kind of that problem, right?
Exactly. So that there is that concern when you get this sort of excitement over something new like this. We've got to be careful that people recognize that, you know, this doesn't mean we keep using lots of plastic, because there's still all the impact of how it's been made and the energy consumption and, you know, water usage and all of these things to factor in as well. And if we don't need it, we shouldn't be using it.
Absolutely.
And we still need to take care of you know, trying not to put it into the water streams. But that was encouraging. The innovation itself, I was very impressed.
No, that's awesome. It's really inspiring to think about this clean tech and the better future, but it's really important to remember it's not here yet.
Yeah, exactly. There are lots of
to have good reducing habits, right?
Yeah.
It's
They're
not
not mainstream
here
right
yet.
now.
And when it comes, it'll be great. But yeah, let's not change our habits quite yet, right?
Yes.
You also went to Pride. Talk about it.
So Pride, again, been running for quite some years now in Tokyo. It was sort of a different vibe this year, I think, sort of falling out from what's happening in the US. There were quite a few companies, big US companies that are usually there and very visible, who were not there this year, which was interesting to see. But there were a lot of sort of the stalwarts, a lot of them still there from Japan and global companies as well. Also a lot of newer companies, smaller ones as well, which was really nice to see. And, you know, the atmosphere itself was wonderful. And my daughter's actually just written an article on this posted on LinkedIn. I'll have to share the link later and go and find that, because we were talking about the atmosphere and the difference between the sort of the Pride in Tokyo compared to Pride, say, when we went to Amsterdam last year. And it felt as though, you know, within the Pride sort of festival area itself in Tokyo, there was a wonderful atmosphere, super positive. Lots of people, obviously, from the LGBTQ community, but also lots of people just coming in curious, like, what is this about? And being very open and sort of coming and talking to people and sort of learning about that, which is a big part of what it's about. But then when we went on the march, it's just sort of like the atmosphere just disappears. And it's like, okay, well, you'll just sort of walk down the side of these streets, quick, cross the street before the traffic light changes, don't cause a nuisance. And a lot of people there are a few people along the way sort of saying Happy Pride or waving a little flag, but very few. And a lot of people just sort of looking slightly confused, like, what's all this about? Who are these people? So it seems there's still quite low awareness. And it sort of felt tolerated rather than really celebrated. Outside that festival area. So there's still a long way to go. But yeah.
I remember at the Japan Travel Awards this year, and they always have a big section on diversity and equity, inclusion, DEI, as well as Pride, and companies that are very welcoming, tourist-related companies that welcome all visitors and very, very vocal and very clear about, yes, gay couples, LGBTQ, you're all welcome. So having the corporate side is also really important, having that open acceptance, right? And showing from the corporate side. But I think a lot of people just assume Japan doesn't have a problem with gay people, but we don't have a legal gay marriage, same-sex marriage yet. So there are a lot of hurdles for people who are, you know, gay and living in Japan. And it's much, like you said, in Amsterdam, there's much more proactive and positive forward, you know, so there's definitely a lot of steps we could improve on, right? So it's good to, like you said, to raise awareness. Just being a part of the event was a big deal, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting around the sort of the corporates being involved, because I think, you know, there are mixed feelings on this, and some people say, well, they're just, you know, it's rainbow washing or whatever that is, and you know, they shouldn't shouldn't be there really. It's not about sort of corporate sort of showing how wonderful and good they are and things. But actually, it was interesting. We did the march with my friend's company, because we're very small ourselves, so not really sort of big enough to register for the march. So we registered, went with my friend's organization, and she'd fairly recently joined that company. And as we were marching, we were chatting with her and her colleagues about, the whole sort of Pride movement and what this is, and found that there was actually very little awareness amongst them beyond sort of, okay, some people are gay, that's fine, but actually, what are all the different flags, and what is this about, and what are the challenges and things like that. There was very little awareness, but being there at Pride as a company really gave them that opportunity to have those conversations and to build that understanding and empathy, and therefore the allyship, which was really nice to see, actually. So I think in that sense, it really does a good job.
And then in that way, it could spur on dialogues like when we get people to register for a newsletter, yep, or information, giving their own information, maybe we should have a gender neutral choice, right? Yep. Quite often on the forms, it's you have to choose male or female. Why? Exactly. Why is that necessary, right?
Yeah, yeah, very much.
So the difficulties people have changing names, like in terms of legislation, right? I mean, there's a lot we could do to improve, right?
Exactly.
In my marketing class last week, I was introducing about financial marketing, and we were talking about Scotiabank in Canada and how they supported Pride tape for athletes, because athletes has been a big issue, knee-jerk reaction issue around the world about trans athletes and things, right? So they wanted to come out very strong and have this Pride tape and really big campaign. And then the NHL, the National Hockey League, said, no, you're not allowed to have Pride tape for any of the games. And they pushed back, and they got huge community support. The NHL changed its mind, and so it said, we're going to change the regulations. So it shows that you were in a not a protest, but a demonstration or a parade, right? But it has an effect. People power is real, right?
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I think that goes for many of the topics we talk about, right? It's you can raise your voice, you can show, how you feel about these issues. And it does have an impact.
Absolutely. Speaking of people power, you also joined a great cleanup with Sego. Alana Bonzi, who's been on the show, and I should have her back soon. She always does these amazing cleanups, and you have a lot of people coming from their companies, volunteering as part of their work, which is fabulous to see, but also a lot of individuals coming out, and you were showing some of the microplastics, or on the way to microplastics, and then they had some really interesting data. Collecting over 10,888 items, 163 bags filled, plastic foam fragments over 6,000, other plastic over 800, almost 900, cigarette butts, 700, over 700, right? So it's so informative, right? To be part of these cleanups.
It really is. And, Alana's organization, Sego, does an amazing job of this, about really helping people understand, getting them involved in a fun way. And it was, a beautiful day down at the beach, and, the atmosphere was great. And it was people brought their families along. So a lot of them came with their companies, but also brought their families. There were a couple of schools there. YIS, Yokohama International School was there, Horizon as well. And so it was really great to see the kids going out there, some of them with the teacher as well. So the teacher, from related subjects would come, and the kids getting out there, families, companies. And it was interesting because you look at that beach, first of all, and you're like, well, I'm not seeing that much pollution. There are not many pet bottles and things lying around. It doesn't look too bad. And then you start actually looking into the sand, particularly along the tide line. All right. And we found the way we started, with my son, for example, who's 9, going around, I said, look for colors you wouldn't expect to see on the beach. And so we looked for things like blue or pink or something like that, or bright yellow. And then you started seeing in the sand all these colors, and like, okay, let's just stop and sit here in this little space and start sifting through the sort of the tide line area there. And that's when we really started finding all these little plastic fragments like that. And there were so many once you started looking, like, oh my gosh, here as well. And those are the ones which are really getting into our systems, right? That the fish and the turtles, etc., are eating without realizing it, or larger sort of filter feeder things like rays and whales as well, also eating. This stuff's dangerous. It really is dangerous. And there was a lot of it.
Yeah. And it's, the ocean cleanup is doing amazing work cleaning up from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, also stopping plastic pollution from the rivers. So it doesn't, they found that that's a big feeder into the ocean. But also their data is so useful for us around the world, to anybody who's an activist or scientist or in manufacturing or of plastic or government regulation, right? Exactly. And so they have found if there's, a lot of microplastics even in the ocean absorbs less carbon. And we know that a lot of our rainfall comes from the ocean. Well, if the ocean's full of plastic, that means our rainwater is full of plastic. That means more of our food and our drinking water is full of plastic, right? Exactly. So it's all a circular system. We're not just washing our hands of the problem when it goes to sea, right?
Exactly.
So picking it up off the beach like you guys did, that's huge. Yeah.
It's I mean, obviously sort of how much are we actually taking out, and there's a lot that's so tiny we're not even seeing it. But the awareness part is massively important, like you say, just sort of getting people to think about where is this coming from, and how is it circulating within our system, and then how do we stop it getting into the system, but also once it's in there, how can we clean this up and take it out? Because this stuff, I mean, there was something else, I haven't got a link at the moment, but an article I read quite recently about a study that had been done on brain tissue of people, and every single brain they sampled had nanoplastics in it.
And it's not only the microplastic issue, it's what is plastic made of? Yeah. It's a combination of a variety of chemicals, quite often quite dangerous chemicals, right? Exactly. And there's no regulation in what kind of chemicals they can use for the plastic. So regulation's important, but also using filters, but also just not buying it. If you have an opportunity to buy something in aluminum can, we know that's recycled at a high level, glass bottle, even a paper carton, just choose non-plastic whenever you can. I was at Edion, which is the national chain electric store. And I noticed that they have this water filter. And I really like this idea, because usually when you have these water filters at home, you have to get the bottle delivery, right? And that's an added cost. Here, they're encouraging people to use tap water. Oh. And you put tap water in the top, and it has a UV filter, and it filters out. And one of the big things they're talking about is PFAS, the forever chemicals, right? Now, I haven't seen any water filters yet talking about plastics and microplastics, but PFAS is another huge issue, right? And
it really is.
Always in the news recently. So awareness, definitely media covering it is important, but having options like this, using tap water, is a great step forward. I love it. Yeah,
no, that's really good to see, really encouraging.
Yeah. Now, you also were talking about the Blue Ocean Dome at the expo.
Yeah, so this is what I haven't been to expo yet, and I know you have, so I'm really curious to see.
No, I haven't yet. Yeah.
You? Okay, right. So this I was just reading about, and one of my reservations about actually going to expo is really, how sustainable is this when these big structures are being built and then won't be used afterwards. A lot of it becomes waste. But this blue dome that's created by a Japanese architect, I think Shigeru Ban is his name, is designed for all of the parts to be reused. Awesome. Which is wonderful. And it's using things like bamboo as sort of the core bamboo and carbon fiber. And the bamboo, as we know, there are a lot of unmanaged sort of bamboo forests in Japan, just sort of growing rampantly. So there's a huge resource there that we can tap into. It's fast growing as well if we want to replace that. But I just love the fact that this is designed for reuse. They're really thinking about the end of life. So not just the materials it's made from right now, but actually what happens to it afterwards, where it goes, how can it be used. So I thought it's a wonderful example of what's possible when you apply that thinking from the beginning, that ecosystem thinking, and start to think about, not just for now, but actually what happens then after that.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, the whole theme of the expo, I thought, was a lot about sustainability. So definitely being able to reuse, or why not keep those structures there and make it a future event site, future tourism site, right? Like a lot of the Olympic structures do.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So exactly. we have a comment here from Diversity Love. Thanks for joining. Great to see your questions and comments. The burn the plastic with the filters. This is a popular feeling about, well, we're burning the plastic, we're making energy, and that is a positive thing, but it does have emissions, of course, and you can't reuse the ash.
Yeah.
So after you burn waste, if it didn't have plastic in, you could reuse that ash. You could put it into farming. You could put it into building structures. But because it has plastic in, and plastic has so many different kind of chemicals, you can't reuse it. It has to go to landfill. And so it creates another problem. Plus, you're sourcing plastic from fossil fuels. So the more plastic you're using, even if you're burning it for energy, we are creating too much, which a lot ends up in the ocean, so I often have that reaction from people. Well, it's burned, so it's energy, so it's okay, but it's more complicated than that, right?
It is a very complicated thing. I mean, it's arguably better than it going straight into landfill and then floating off into rivers and the ocean. But like you say, there are so many aspects to consider here. And once that toxic ash goes into landfill and you've got the PFAS leaching out into the water systems and so on, then, we're back to square one and we've still got the pollutants. So I love, the other comment here around glass is healthier. Yes, would completely agree with that. And it's reusable, endlessly.
Yeah, I usually buy glass bottles like of soda or something, and then I just reuse it over and over. I love it because you can keep it cold in the fridge, and you just use a filter and tap water. Another great comment here about bamboo. Written a book about bamboo and cities to reuse environment. Fantastic. Good for you.
Yeah. It's a wonderful material. It really is. Bamboo's great.
And so underutilized in Japan, even though we have it everywhere. I'm starting to see bamboo textiles from Australia. Bamboo made into all sorts of things in other areas of Asia. But come on, Japan, we can do it too, right?
Yes.
And it's here, it's everywhere. Let's use it. And it grows again really fast, right?
Yeah, yeah. And great question there again about the ash. Is there a link? We'll have to go and find a link for this. I'm sure there must be information out there.
We will definitely find one, and we'll put the link below in the show notes. Thank you so much again for joining. Now, when I was taking some time off this month, I was watching a lot of TV, of course, with one eye at first and then the other eye. Mr. Beast was really inspiring. He just came out with something called Beast Games, which you can watch on Amazon, which was lots of fun. It was a reality show, good distraction. But as I'm watching, I really started diving into his whole YouTube philosophy about giving away money. And his generosity has become viral since he's been doing YouTube videos more than 20 years ago or 10 years ago. It's just amazing. So he uses the revenue from making the videos, people watching ads, and he uses that to give away big sums of money that gets more people to watch the videos and grows his channel. So it's like this amazing strategy, but also even watching the game show, the whole community interactions and how people sacrifice themselves, not only to about the money, right? Like there was so much human elements about friendship and collaboration and stuff. So it's
Yeah.
definitely something really interesting to think about. And for someone who does YouTube as well,
yeah,
talking more about generosity and being a major YouTuber, you know, that's a big deal. And nobody else is doing that. And, you know, some people might think, oh, it's fake or something, but he's started a whole philanthropy channel.
Yeah.
Where he just focuses on doing good around the world, and he's done loads of wells and created clean energy in places that are hard to get to for, you know, cables and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely put the link below. I wrote a whole Medium article about it because it was so inspiring, you know.
Interesting. I'm going to have to go and look at that. I know very little about this guy, and you know, I've heard the name, but really don't sort of know what he's doing. So we'll
and his connection to young people is an amazing part of thinking about that knock-on effect for generosity and ethical thinking, taking care of other people for people doing YouTube or kids growing up. You know, that's a huge part of it as well. So,
and that's really nice to see positivity being spread like that rather than hate and misogyny and all these other horrendous things we're seeing going on, and you know, spreading virally on social media. This is really nice to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So all those links will go below. Thanks everybody for joining. That is our time. Thank you so much, Tove. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you all again next month.
Brilliant. Looking forward to it.